wonderful.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alicia. Hope you're doing well. I appreciate you getting us started today, and would like to thank everyone that is joining us or is continuing to join us. I see some really amazing places. We've got Chicago, we've got Virginia Beach, we've got Norfolk, Virginia, we've got Arlington. So yeah, please let us know where you're from. Oh, Houston, Texas is in there. Thanks, Summer. We'd love to know where everyone's from. I personally am here in Charleston, South Carolina. So if anyone here is from South Carolina and more importantly, Charleston, let me know. Let me know. We'll be excited. And we're excited to have you guys over here at the Craft Express headquarters if you're ever in town too. So my name is Vic Patel. I'm the founder of Craft Express. And like I said, we're here in sunny Charleston, South Carolina. I could say that today because we've had 2 days of disastrous rains over here. It just poured for the last couple of days, but we're really happy to see the sun again. And today we're going to talk about sublimation. So it'd be really great to understand from some of you folks where you are in your journey, right? Are you starting off? Are you in the middle of it? Are you having challenges? I'm here to answer all of those sorts of questions. And typically on these classes or on these sessions, you'd have Megan here. So if you've been to any of our classes in the past, or you've been on our social media feeds on Craft Express US on Facebook and Instagram, you'll see Megan. Well, I'm happy to let you guys know that Megan's going to come back in a few weeks, in about 8 weeks. She is actually right now, this minute, delivering her first baby. So she went on maternity leave last week, and we've got our phones here waiting to get the announcement that baby has arrived. So we're expecting a nice little bouncing baby girl to arrive anytime now. So we may even have to make that announcement on the school. So talk to me about sublimation. So tell me a little bit about how experienced you guys are. Just keep chatting away. If I don't get your questions, Felicia is going to come in, interrupt me, and then ask me to go back and answer certain questions. But I do see a few folks saying, curious about sublimation, don't do sublimation, but have a Cricut, which is great. Did some cards and a shirt. You know, sublimation, when I first started, don't want to date myself, but 15, 16 years ago was when I first found myself sort of getting into sublimation. Fell into it by accident, quite honestly. I worked for a company that made phone cases, and they were sublimating onto phone cases and selling them. And nobody knew what the technology was. We just thought it was really cool because we were taking people's photographs and people's artwork and then imprinting them directly onto a phone case. And guess what? You couldn't feel it. You couldn't feel the print. And that was the beauty of sublimation. But I still felt that it was complicated, right? Because the word sublimation is very scientific, it's scary to a certain degree. And when I started doing sublimation, I didn't realize how easy it was, right? It's easy as creating something digitally or uploading some artwork that you already have, printing it on a specific sublimation printer. And we'll talk a little bit more about sublimation printers in a few minutes. And then pressing it onto on a heat press. The only difference is anything that you want to sublimate onto needs to have a nice little polyester coating. I'm looking down here because I see your guys' faces here and my camera's over here. So please excuse me, I'm not ignoring you. But these blanks are coated with a special polyester coating. And it's very important that you get blanks that are coated evenly in polyester coating. Otherwise, your transfers don't come out as vibrant, right? The heat press is equally as important in the whole process. The heat press is the element that provides that pressure onto the blank here, and then provides that heat and that even heat to go across the blank to actually make the product, okay? To actually get the ink directly into the product. So I thought I know we haven't done demonstrations in the past on these calls, but I thought, why not? This is my first call with my calls. Megan's been doing all the calls up until now. So I'm thinking, what can possibly go wrong if I did a demonstration of sublimation and talk through the process at the same time? So I am going to sublimate this 12-ounce stainless steel can cooler. So what's special about it? So this can cooler has a cap on the top. So a 12-ounce skinny can, like a soda can, or if you prefer an alcoholic beverage, a beer can actually fit into this. This is a double-walled stainless steel can cooler. It's actually available on michaels.com too. It has a lid. The can goes in here. You secure the can with the lid, and it will keep your drink nice and cool for several hours. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to transform this into something that looks pretty cool. If you don't have a Sawgrass printer or an Epson printer or now the new Brother printer for sublimation, and we'll talk about printers in a second, also sell pre-printed transfers. So these are pre-designed transfers that come on sublimation paper. And for those folks who have a Cricut or have a Silhouette, it also has a backing. So you can actually put these through a cutter. You can weed out the blank space or white space, or weed out names, letters, etc., and then overlay them onto your substrate to sublimate. So let's say you had a printer. You would print this on transfer paper. Sublimation transfer paper is either cellulose or a clay-based paper that takes the ink and holds the dye that's in the ink. The dye, or the ink itself, is made up of tiny, tiny little particles of color, typically cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The same 4 colors that go into any inkjet printer that you have at home to print photographs or documents. But this particular sublimation, the sublimation ink, actually has little particles of dye. That is what makes it special. That dye is so tiny you can't see it with a naked eye, but will sit on the paper once it's printed. And all it's waiting for is to get wrapped around a mug or a coaster and then put under a heat press. So under a heat press, it gets heated to almost 400 degrees. In fact, today we're going to heat this up. I'm going to take the backing off of this paper, put it to the side, and I'm going to walk through this process. So I've already cut this sheet so it wraps around nicely around this can cooler. Let's see if we have any questions popping up. And guys, feel free to ask questions as we go along. And Felicia, please do not, please feel free to interrupt me during the conversation we're having. So I'm going to put tape going all the way down this tumbler. So I've wrapped it nice and tight. The reason I love sublimation is that you could take something that's really ordinary and really make it wow. So I've wrapped this tumbler. I put some tape going down the edge, going down the seam, and you notice I've overlapped it, just barely overlapped the bottom layer. And then I'm going to put it into this tumbler press. I've got this tumbler press running at 385 degrees at 60 seconds. So I'm going to close this down, and the counter is going to start. Now, after 60 seconds, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to turn it a quarter, because at the top of the tumbler press is the cold spot. That's a spot that's not getting as much heat, not getting as much pressure to sublimate, okay? But what's happening right now, all that dye that's sitting on that paper is turning into a gas, literally. And that gas is going to get transferred into that polyester layer that's sitting on the cup. Now, polyester just so happens, this is your chemistry lesson, everyone. I hope you're paying attention. Polyester at this temperature, the molecules open up. So the two things are happening at the same time. You got the dye turning into a gas. You got the polyester molecules that are opening up at this temperature. And that gas has got nowhere to go but into that molecule because it's opened up. Okay, we're going to spin this around. So we're going to cook the other side.
And Vic, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
there's a question asking, does it matter what kind of tape you use?
Yes, it does. So you do need heat resistant tape. You can't go to Amazon and buy your Scotch tape and put it into the press. Remember, this is running at 385 degrees, kind of chicken roasting temperature here, right? So it's pretty hot. And so you want to get heat resistant tape, and you don't want to get too thick a tape either. You want it relatively thin. You just want it sticky enough to hold that paper together during the process. So that's a great question. So when that heat press opens back up, we've got about 20 seconds left. Your magic is done. It's over, right? With sublimation, that's the beauty. There's no post-treatment or pre-treatment. You're just printing on the paper or purchasing the pre-designed sheets, wrapping, and then transferring directly onto the cup. All right. And by the way, make sure we use nice little heat resistant gloves too, because this come out toasty. All right, you guys ready? This is the moment, which I call the moment of wow. So we've taken that cup and transformed it by taking, where is that sheet? Do you remember? It looked like this. This is what it looked like on paper. It looked pretty dull. But we took it. See the yellow on the paper? And this is what the yellow looks like when transferred. The ink actually activates under the heat. So really good dye, really good ink will activate and pop under pressure and under the correct amount of heat. This took 2 minutes to make. That's it. We took dull and boring and made it into something that we can actually sell at a marketplace. We could actually sell on Etsy and actually make some money on this, right? What do you guys think?
So there are some more questions. Is there somewhere they can go and get a listing of what the temperatures are needed for each item or each blank?
There are, and what we actually have internally, we have a Google document that we share with all of our customers and our partners. Felicia, I can share that with you, and I'm happy for you to share that out with anyone on the call who wants to have that. So we have all of our products that are listed on there, all of our heat presses, and all the relevant time and temperatures and pressures. Now, if you're using a different heat press, if you're using a different paper, you're going to have to play around with it a little bit, just to make sure that different heat presses and different pressure get varying results. Shouldn't be that huge of variance, but just to get the sweet spot. But we've got a pretty good guide for you. But as you can see, the results are pretty stunning, right? So this is stainless steel. This is a stainless steel can cooler, which is great. But there are other materials that we can go on to also, right? We've got glass, for example. So who hasn't seen glass cans? The 18-ounce glass cans, right? Everyone's seen these. They're very popular nowadays. And then within Michaels, at Michaels itself, we've got a select number of stores around the country that have a variety of different products that are available within the stores themselves and at michaels.com on the website. In fact, our whole catalog is on michaels.com. Any other questions, Felicia?
There's a question asking about butcher paper.
Yep, I just saw that. So yes, so I'd use butcher paper. I I know I didn't use it on this particular demo. That's a bad habit that I have because this is my heat press. But you do want to use the butcher paper going around the substrate, only because sometimes a little bit of dye can gas out as it's heating. And what that means is, do you remember when we had the seam right here, or the seam right here, or if there's a break right here, that gas can still leach out a little bit. And what you don't want to do is get that on your heating element, because then it's going to sit there and then transfer onto the next product that you're going to make, right? Just in case. You just don't want, you just want to follow some really good habits, and don't follow Vic's habits, because Vic's habits are not always the best habits. And Megan would agree, but she's not here to agree. So that's great.
Then she was just speaking about about it matching or lining up. There's a question asking if you have a non-matching pattern, how do you basically line them up?
Very carefully. So this pattern was not matching, right? As you can see, there's a nice seam going down here where the two different colors collided. It is hard to match up patterns. I'm not gonna lie. Now, what I have done in the past, I have deliberately changed the design a little bit, right? So one of the things that I do when I transfer the paper, I'm trying to find, oh, here you go. This is the paper. So what I do is I will tear down this paper, okay? What happens when you tear down a paper is, this one's a little bit more difficult because it's got a plastic backing to it. But when you tear down a sheet of paper, you get this sort of severing effect happening, right? So if you can tear down the sides of the paper, that feathering effect will create an image that makes it actually look like you deliberately design something to end, right? And it looks like a torn paper or a torn design, and it's just fading in to the actual mug or the product. Does that make sense? Any specific paper we want for printing and can. So for sublimation, you really need to get sublimation paper. Sublimation paper is, one, slightly thicker. Two is it's clay based, so it's got this really granular feel to it, and you want that because you want it to hold on to the dye that you're laying down, right? So that dye transfers appropriately when it's heated. Can you do the heating in the oven if you don't have a heat press? Yes, you can. So you'll see behind here is a Craft Express oven. Now the oven is pretty spectacular because, yes, can you do cylindrical objects like this? Yeah, but you can also do cylindrical objects in the tumbler press, right? Because it's cylindrical, the heating element is. So the oven is pretty cool because you can actually go a step further and take objects like this, right? Which have a contour or have almost a latte style. And then you take one of these, you wrap the paper around the flat areas of this. You can wrap something around here too. And then you have a film. There is a special shrink wrap that you can use to put sleeve as a shrink wrap sleeve that goes into here. You put it into the oven, and the sleeve literally shrinks and tightens up in the oven. So that's the element that's creating your pressure when you are sublimating in the oven. The other benefit for the oven is that you can do more than one cup at a time. So you can do 2 or 3 tumblers at a time. You could do 4 coffee mugs at a time if you want to. So there are different techniques that you can use within the oven that you can't use by using a tumbler press.
There is a question asking what's the difference between DTF, sublimation, and print screening, and which one would be easy to use on baby clothing?
Okay. So print screens or standard screen printing, right? When we go to Target, we go to Walmart, we go buy a t-shirt, we're actually touching the t-shirt and you can feel the print, right? Typically, those are screen printed t-shirts. And that's a big, long process of having screens, pushing one color at a time, spinning the plate around, doing a different color. It's a long process. It's an expensive process to actually do. But a lot of people make mass-produced t-shirts that way because it's a production line process. DTF is a new process that's been around for about 3 or 4 years now. I actually saw it initially about 6 years ago in the UK. But DTF is a process that allows you to use white ink. Now, it still sits on top of the fabric. Sorry, screen printing also allows you to go onto cotton t-shirts. So I apologize, I should have said that earlier. DTF is also designed to go onto cotton t-shirts. And because it has the white ink, you can actually use the white ink on shirts. This actual shirt here is a DTF shirt. It was printed at a trade show. Somebody printed for me with our logo on there. And it's a more expensive process, but it's very popular because of the white ink process. It prints on a film. It's a very, very thin film. It's heated. There's a powder that goes on top, which is your polyester powder or polyurethane powder. And that's melted on top of that ink because that's the bonding agent that goes onto the shirt. It allows that print to sit on the shirt. You then have to transfer that print with the polyurethane layer onto the shirt itself. Now, that whole process only takes about a minute. The actual heat press moment where you're actually pressing it onto the shirt only takes about 15 seconds under the heat press. Okay. Now, you're really limited both in screen printing and DTF with vector graphics. And what I mean by that are non-photographic images, because DTF and screen printing have a very hard time in getting skin tones or gradient images transferred or printed. Okay, so you're really limited with vector images, etc., etc. Now, if you want to do something that's more intricate, photographs, for example, of grandchildren, kids, significant others, then you really want to push sublimation, right? Because a couple of things. Sublimation is high definition. So you can get really intricate prints produced through sublimation, and it doesn't go away. The washability for sublimation is almost a lifetime. I've got t-shirts that have been sublimated for years, and the t-shirts are starting to tear, but the print is still vibrant because it's in the material. It's literally the dye is in that polyester molecule. So unless I destroy that molecule, that print's not going anywhere. Okay, unless I stick it out in the sun for 6 months in bright sunlight, it's going to start fading away. But other than that, sublimation is very, very durable. Okay.
And Vic, there's a question I missed. When you're printing out, do you have to if you have to reverse the image?
You do. So good question. So when you're printing sublimation, you do want to reverse the image. Okay. Because you're printing and then you're actually laying it on top of the cup. So, or the object or t-shirt. So you do want to mirror the image when you're printing. And most sublimation software today. So let's talk about the printers, because that marries up to software. You've got the latest arrival on the sublimation scene is the Brother sublimation printer, and that is sort of an all-encompassing desktop sublimation printer with sublimation ink. It's built for sublimation. You have to use the Brother ink cartridges. The ink's great, lasts for a long time. And when you print, it just go to file, print, and it gives you the option to mirror the image or not to mirror. And then the question is, why wouldn't you mirror? Well, you wouldn't mirror if you were going onto something like a keychain, an acrylic keychain, because you typically print on the back of the keychain and you see through the front. So you don't want to mirror that. Or a glass cutting board, same principle. But the next printer is the Epson printer. The Epson printer, Epson grew up as a company that manufactured huge printers. And also you're very familiar with Epson, with the desktop printer that prints our school projects and things like that. Again, wasn't built for sublimation until recently. They launched a new desktop printer for sublimation. It's okay, it's a good printer, it's a good company, but again, they've fallen into the sublimation world because of the market. Up until now, people have been converting existing sublimation printers, existing desktop printers, into sublimation printers when it comes to Epson. Then you have Sawgrass. Sawgrass has been around for about 32 years. It's 100% dedicated to sublimation. About 9 years ago, it introduced its own dedicated, purpose-built sublimation printer. Two of them, in fact, one that takes letter size and one that takes the tabloid size paper. The inks are specifically made for sublimation. And so the whole system is made for sublimation. They have a color management piece of software that marries the printer and the design software. They have a design software that is online. So they have a whole suite and a host of pieces of software. They recently launched a marketplace that allows you to sell all your products on the marketplace too that you're making. So Sawgrass has been around for many years, tried, tested, and really sort of trusted by hundreds of thousands of users around the world. Epson's just come into the space, and Brother has just come into the space. But again, Epson and Brother have been dedicated names in the printing world for a long time. So it's you got to pick the printer that you like, that meets your budget and meets your needs, quite honestly. Good question.
I think there's another question asking, since you mentioned about the oven behind you, someone is asking, what about your oven, your kitchen oven?
Good question. Oh my gosh, these questions are great. All right, so kitchen oven. A lot of people used to buy the kitchen ovens a long time ago from a Best Buy or a Walmart, and then use those for sublimation. Okay. They're not purpose-built for sublimation. They're not designed to do that. They're really designed to make your toast, heat up your food, warm up your pizzas, your leftover pizzas, right? You don't want to use your home oven that you use for food, not because the inks are poisonous or anything like that, but you just don't want to mix the two, right? I mean, I mentioned that the inks gas out. You don't want that dye to be gassing out into your oven, and then later on that afternoon, Billy comes home, warms up his pizza, and some of that dye is now getting into the food. You just don't want that. It's not good. I'm not saying the inks are toxic or anything. They're not. It's just that you just don't want it, right? Just we stay away from food coloring in food. We should stay away from sublimation dye in our kitchen ovens. Does that make sense? And that's why we developed the sublimation oven. It's unmistakable. Can you make cookies in here and heat up your food? Yep, it's a convection oven. You sure can. But this is really dedicated. It's not designed for food use. It's really designed for sublimation. And just like the Black & Decker at Best Buy, that's designed to warm up your food. It's not designed for sublimation. Good question.
There's one more question asking if there's any type of sublimation hacks.
Sublimation hacks. And I think I specifically saw the sublimation hacks for cotton, right? The only, first of all, you can't sublimate onto cotton. Sublimation needs a polyurethane or a polyester layer for the ink to go into, right? That's very, 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 very important. Anybody, doesn't matter who it is, anybody that says you can sublimate onto cotton is lying. You cannot sublimate onto cotton. That ink will transfer. You might get a little transfer onto cotton. You put it back in your washer, you wait a few weeks, it's going to start fading away and washing out. Okay. You can get a 65%, you can get a 65, 35 blend polyester cotton at 35%. You can sublimate on there, right? What's going to get sublimated? It is the polyester fibers on the shirt. The cotton fibers will take on some of that ink, but will start fading and washing away on the first wash. Okay. So if you want a vintage looking t-shirt and you want to sell those vintage looking t-shirts, get the 65-35 blend, put your print on there, wash it, and then sell it. Okay. But you cannot sublimate on cotton. There's no way. DTF is a workaround because that polyurethane that you're putting onto the ink and infusing onto the ink is that layer that will take on the ink, but it's still sitting on top of a shirt. So when you still touch it, I can still feel the letters of Craft Express on the shirt. It's not as rough as a screen printed shirt, but you can still feel it, right? And so you'll get a good life out of this shirt, a better life than a screen printed shirt, but a sublimated shirt you're going to get an even better life out of. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to do this glass can, and because it's glass, I'm going to do it for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do it for another 2 minutes. And the beeping you hear is me changing the time on this heat press. So this is a glass can. I'm going to do the same design on the glass can. So it's going to give you a great idea of what the can looks like, what the color differences and the variances look like on different materials. And while that's cooking, yes, I just hit the heat press with my hand. So don't do that. It's hot. I'll answer more questions.
I don't see any.
No?
Well, I
Okay.
think one just popped in. Is it better to aim for a Cricut mug press as a beginner rather than the one you are using?
I think it all depends. That's again another great question. So I think that was Maria. So what there's a couple of things. The Cricut press is a good press too. Craft Express has its own automatic press, mug press, and it all depends on what you want to do. If you want to just create mugs, and if you want to create smaller drinkware, the Craft Express automatic press can also handle the 17-ounce enamel cups too, right? Can also handle the glass mugs. And it all depends on if you just want to stick with mugs, then yeah, it's great. You know, you turn it on. This particular press, you can actually control the time and temperature, which is really important. On a Cricut press, you're limited with its automatic temperature setting. However, if you want to expand your offering later and you want to create a tumbler or you want to create the 40-ounce Stanley sublimatable cups, right, or the compatible cups, then you do need something that's a little bit larger and more robust. And what I've found, and I've been doing this for a long time, what I typically find is folks who get into the business, they get into it and say, you know what, I'm just going to make coffee mugs, or I'm going to be okay with this small printer or this small heat press, and they love it so much, and they start using it, and they say, oh my God, this is easy. Maybe I can make something else. But I wish I had bought that larger heat press, or I wish I'd bought the tumbler press. So ultimately, it all depends on if you're going to spend the money, then just I would get a tumbler press initially, because number one, they're very, very popular right now if you're going to resell it. Coffee mugs, lots of people make coffee mugs. You make less money on selling coffee mugs. And we'll talk a little bit about selling product and things like that in a second, because it's very important that you learn to run a profitable business if that's what you want to do with sublimation, right? So I would think long and hard about what you want to make first. Remain focused. There's Felicia and I were talking before everyone came on about getting into sublimation and being focused on what you want to do, right? I mean, there's lots and lots of products that you can make, from jigsaw puzzles to tumblers to bottles, and you name it is out there. But what do you really have a passion to make? What can you sell? Start off narrow, learn how to use the system, and learn how to sublimate, and then grow from there. Does that make sense? So we've got 50 seconds left. I believe I already turned it around once, so, and then we'll reveal the pattern. So let's talk a little bit about running a business. Sublimation is actually really easy to profit from. People can buy a 15-ounce or an 11-ounce coffee mug for a few dollars. Once you put a print on there, whether it's a company logo or a picture of a family vacation, you can sell those mugs for $15 at a piece. Okay, so your initial investment is, yes, your printer, your heat press, and a few of the accessories, and of course the blanks for the mugs, for example. But after that, your true expense is the cost of running that printer, which is the ink, which typically is pennies on the dollar. It really is insignificant compared to how much profit you can actually make from selling a product. All right, so I'm going to reveal this. I'm going to continue the selling conversation in a second. So again, this is hard. So I ran this for almost 4 minutes, okay? Because it is glass, it takes a little bit longer to do glass. And it's definitely hotter. And there you go. So I have seen people purchase these glass cans. And let me see if I can, pardon my phrase, but shed some light on it. But once light goes through it, there's a light here. Once light goes through it, the actual product glows. It's really cool. So I've seen people actually get these glass cans, throw away the lids, pour wax in here with a wick, and sell it as a candle. So there's a lot of people that will take these products and then repurpose them for something different. I've seen people use these as vases, right, for flowers and things like that. So be creative. So back to the selling. You can actually start a nice little business, knocking on doors, talking to family members or friends to see if they would like to buy some promotional products. And the beauty about sublimation is you can make 1 mug at a time, or you can make 10 mugs for an order. Typically, if I were a normal business and I wanted to go out and get coffee mugs, I'd have to hit a minimum order quantity, pay for the shipping, and then hopefully they got the print right when it arrived. You can actually provide a personalized service to do that in your area and make a good living out of it. Okay. You can go to markets. I have set up a number of people here in Charleston who have come, purchase equipment, and they come back almost on a weekly basis to pick up their supplies from our headquarters here. And they go to markets and they sell at markets. They will open up their booth. They'll take a little heat press and the printer. One of them has a photo booth. Another one will create pre-printed designs, who he has partnered with an artist in town, and he'll sell those designs one for one at a market. And a good day's work, he'll come home with $500-600 in sales, and that's his weekend money. That's his money to do what he wants with. and then come back the following week to buy more supplies. So there are people that will set up Etsy stores. And remember, you're not having to carry an inventory of the finished product. You're just carrying the inventory of the blank mugs, and you're making them as your orders come in. So you can change the designs out whenever you want to, and you're creating personalized and customized product. And you're charging a premium for that because you're selling in smaller quantities, and you can turn those around very quickly. Typically, within 24 hours, you can actually have them hand delivered to a customer locally or shipped out to a customer nationally.
I think there's a couple of
Any
questions that
Yeah.
have popped in. One is asking, or Susie's asking, for sublimation, is it possible to do a drawing design by hand, like sketching to transfer paper before putting in the machine?
Yeah, you can actually. So at Michael's and at Michaels.com, we sell sublimation markers. This is an 18 pack. It comes with a variety of colors, including some fluorescent colors. And that is another excellent way to start. You don't have a printer, but you're artistic in nature, right? So you know how to draw, or you can use some sort of tracing paper. You use these markers on regular copy paper. You don't even need any special paper. You just need a heat press for this and the blank product. And you do your drawing, and then you transfer it on the heat press. And I'm happy to illustrate that if you want me to. I'm gonna come out of camera view and get some markers real quick. But it is an extremely easy process to follow. And it's my son at Christmas actually decided, we've got 3 dogs in our immediate family, and he decided to create dog collars, sublimatable dog collars for each of the dogs as their Christmas gifts. And so he got a box of markers, and he put a unique design on, drew a unique design on a piece of paper, and then transferred it onto the dog collars. He did that himself. I helped him with the heat press. You don't want to you don't want to have your children messing around with the heat presses because they're nice and hot and toasty. You don't want to burn them. I'm just cutting some paper here. So these are special sublimation markers. This is regular copy paper, and I'm just going to make a silly drawing using some markers out of here, and let's see what we get. Probably be a terrible drawing, but you'll get a sense of how cool the transfer is using this process. But yeah, use a coloring book, right? If you want to do a children's activity, use a coloring book. I have folks, my son's school purchases coasters from us for Grandparents' Day. And they actually purchase the markers, and they purchase several hundred coasters that they'll give away during Grandparents' Day every year. During Christmas, they made the kids create ornaments for their family members, right? So there are multiple things that you can do. So here's my design. If you want to purchase this design, you're more than welcome to Venmo me a couple of $1 million. Let's use, I'm going to get another piece of drinkware real quick. That'd be easier to transfer. Here's our 20-ounce tumbler. I'm going to reset this. I'm going to reset this to 60 seconds. Apologies for all the beeping. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this around this tumbler. And there's one more thing I have to do. Let me just cut this to the right size. so it's not overlapping too far. And when you are sublimating using this method, if you are writing, you do have to write in a mirrored fashion. So a lot of kids will trace their names from a piece of paper underneath the actual drawing backwards. So there you go. Okay, I'm gonna set this now. Not bad. Okay, I will follow the national guidelines for sublimating, which is using butcher paper, because I didn't do that earlier. All right, we're gonna do this for 2 minutes. Take first 60 seconds and then spin it. Felicia, you have a question?
There are some questions asking, where do you buy your t-shirts and other products that's cost effective?
I cheat on the t-shirts. So the one of the folks when I started this company, I mentored my son's teacher's son, if that makes sense, an older child who wanted to start a business. I mentored him into starting his own business, and he started off sublimation. I actually gave him a heat press and I gave him an oven, and I said, do something with it, because he was out of college and he didn't have a job and he wanted to do something. So long story short, he partnered with my son's school. He partnered with the art teacher at the school. He started selling her work, and then this is a great story. He started going door to door in Charleston, knocking on business doors and saying, I can make product for you, and mugs and t-shirts and everything for you. And he literally 3 months ago purchased a $30,000 printer to do t-shirts. He came back to me and paid me back for the equipment that I gave him, and is now full-time running this sublimation / t-shirt business. And that is where I get my t-shirts from now. Long story short, but I wanted you to hear this story because this is a kid who knew absolutely nothing about business, about sublimation, about anything. And he literally started from scratch, knowing nothing. And he taught himself just going on YouTube, watching our videos with Megan. And he'll call me every couple of weeks and say, Vic, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I'll try and point him in the right direction. And he just runs and he gets it done. All right. So remember I told you about the bleeding through? Using regular copy paper is not as thick. Oh, sorry, wrong camera. It's not as thick, but you see, this has come off on the butcher paper. So it's always worthwhile using the butcher paper. So let's see what this turned out like. So these are sublimation markers. These are not regular markers. Yes, continues to be hot. I should do this with my left hand because I'm lefty. There you go. You see how rich and vibrant those colors came out? I'll try and hold it up a little bit better so that you can see all the different colors. And I'll try and get close to the camera too. There you go. And you see, I used a fluorescent yellow. And see how well that came out? So you can use sublimation markers, and they do a great job. A lot of people use coloring books, and they draw around the edges of the image in the coloring book with the black marker, with the black sublimation marker. So that gets imprinted back onto the can or onto the glass. But yes, these are great. And Susie, you're right. This does actually look pretty awesome. And the beautiful thing is, once this is printed, you cannot transfer this. It's gone. There's no more dye left on here to transfer. So whatever you've made here is very, very a one of one print. So this is unique. So if you want to make something for grandparents or for Valentine's Day or for Father's Day, this is a unique opportunity to use sublimation markers.
Hey, Vic, so I
Yeah.
have a question since you said that.
Mhm.
If someone, say, may have taken an image, take that same image and maybe they scanned it, would they be able to duplicate that?
Not really. If they traced over it, maybe, but it's still going to be unique because you're not going to have all the brush strokes and all the different line strokes coming off of it. And scanning this image and then putting it back in, you're also not going to have the color vibrancy that comes out too. Because remember, sublimation ink really gets activated. Let me show you real quick where did I put those markers? Okay. Yeah. So if we just pay attention to uh wrong color. So if we pay attention to just the blue line, you'll notice the difference in the way the color actually pops once it's sublimated. So this is what the blue looks like with the marker. This is what the blue looks like after it's transferred and sublimated. So even if somebody scanned the image before it is sublimated, they will not get the right colors popping. Isn't that cool?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep.
There is another question asking, out of all the printers that you mentioned, which one would you suggest or recommend?
So a little bit about my background. I was the vice president of marketing for Sawgrass for about 5 years. And then prior to that, I ran their global sales team. So I would go with Sawgrass only because that whole group, that whole company is dedicated to sublimation. Okay. Now, Brother is coming in, it's relatively new and it's coming in pretty quickly. And so Brother is another one to look out for. But today, I have 5 Sawgrass printers in the office here that I use, and I have a Brother printer in the office too. So I work closely with both Sawgrass and Brother, quite honestly, because they have reached out and they wanted to work with us. And so we're happy to do that. And I'm happy to work with anyone that provides a good solution that works and that is not going to create heartache and headaches for our users. Make sense?
Wonderful.
So yeah.
We have
So
only about 4 more minutes left. If I missed your question, I truly do apologize, but if you can pop it back in, we'll try to get that answered here before the class ends.
yeah. So for me, as you type in your questions, if you have any left, I feel that sublimation is it really is an amazing thing to get into. And for me, there isn't a moment whenever I'm taking off this paper and I just don't go, wow, right? So, and that's why I always use, prepare for the wow, because every time you take this paper off, you've gone from something that's looking pretty dull to pretty darn amazing, right? And you imagine doing this with photographs, with your own artwork, with other images. It is pretty astounding what you can get done here, and it's pretty amazing how much money you can actually make by selling sublimated products in the marketplace. Any closing questions?
Someone was wondering, do you do any in-person classes?
I don't do any in-person classes, but I'm happy to arrange some time where either myself, I have Abby, who's in California. We're happy to talk to anyone that is interested in sublimation and have any questions. I'm not going to shy away from any conversation. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm pretty much available. My email address is Vik at craftexpress.com. It's pretty simple. So and I tend to answer all my emails on the same day. Let's see. And did I mention like 50 times that we are available at Michaels and at michaels.com? So we do have all our products on michaels.com, and there are 50 stores right now that actually carry um, uh, a good array, almost 70 different items from Craft Express, from drinkware to aprons to dog collars to bottle openers, coasters, you name it. They do carry it. It is only at a select stores, but we're working on hopefully expanding that. I know that the team at Michaels is dedicated in expanding the sublimation offering. And we're really excited to partner with Michaels and really excited to host these events. So please keep coming back and asking us for what else you want to hear from us. And we're happy to do this over and over again.
And just so you know, there is another Q&A session coming up on February the 28th. So if there is any questions that you forgot to ask or need to ask, we definitely will have another class available for you. So definitely check out michaels.com to see that next class. And Vic, did you give them the Instagram information?
Sure. So Instagram is Craft Express US. And then this is why I need Megan here, because she knows everything. I just want to double check here real quick, guys.
And while he's doing that, just a reminder, this class is being recorded, so it will be available within 24 to 48 hours on our YouTube channel.
Yep, Instagram is Craft Express US. Facebook is, I want to say Craft Express US also. Yep, Craft Express US. So please join us. You'll get to actually join a community on our Facebook too, who's very active and will answer any of your questions. So our community of followers is the beauty about this industry is everyone's willing to share and help you along the way. And hopefully you'll agree when you join us that we've fostered that that trait within our community. And we're quite proud of everyone that follows us. So again, want to thank you for joining today. I know it's your afternoon and your time's precious. So we really are humbled and appreciate you joining this session. Thank you.